Welcome back to another episode of Self-Development with Tactics podcast. And as you can see in the background, we are going through the Stoicism you can't actually see it, unfortunately. Subretti. Do you know the subretti? The Stoicism subretti? Yeah, of course. No, the Stoicism subreddit. It's been some time actually, so I am hoping for quite a few great things to see, to notice, to go through, to talk about. Let's, I think, just start. My personality, being quiet, which is the quote-unquote title. Is it a title? I'm actually not quite sure. Anyway, my personality in many ways is natural fit for Stoicism, and it resonates with me immensely. I have always naturally accepted that I can only control my own actions and not circumstances, mentally plan for worst-case scenarios, allowing myself to feel emotion without being controlled by it, etc. You know, like the fundamentals of Stoicism, I would argue. However, I am kind of loud and jokester, and I feel like this is not particularly aligned with some Stoic principles. I feel as if my joking makes a show of myself unintentionally, and I blurt out outlandish stuff all the time. Any strategies to be more selective with when I choose to speak? Just think before you speak is easier said than done, since it's almost compulsive at this point. Any strategies to make me think before I speak? What do I think about it? What I think about it is, to some degree, I think being too stoic and or too consumed by the idea of either being a stoic or not being a stoic, or having this character trait that is stoic or this other character trait that is not stoic. Being too invested in it, I don't think that it is good. I really don't believe that. Of course, the principles, the fundamentals, the concepts of Stoicism might be really great also in modern times to navigate through really tough times and really fucked up things. But as it is with all things, overdoing it might not be a good idea. Overdoing it with quite everything can lead to negative outcomes. So keep it in mind. I do not necessarily think that being a quote-unquote jokester is that bad. One can really indeed, and this is what I'm seeing here, view it as something bad and also show it as something bad. Well, of course, when you're saying stuff that should not be said, it can lead to some very awkward situations. I get that, but on the other hand, being too silent and being too quiet might also not be that great. I do kind of remember there was some quote about just saying what needs to be said, and then leaving everything else out. Might actually be somebody that quotes it there. There we go. Can you select times to practice more thoughtful speech? For instance, maybe during a regular phone call with a particularly thoughtful friend or a specific discussion group. You're not going to completely change habits of thought overnight, and it might not be beneficial to. Sometimes being loud and entertaining people is good, but being able to switch modes between a louder, more show-off mode and quieter, more thoughtful mode might be a good thing to aim for. I have the opposite situation. My default social mode is quiet and prone to listening, and I have had to make an effort to be more outgoing. Be aware that in most conversations, thinking before you speak will often mean that you lose the chance to speak entirely. I think one-on-one conversations with a person who is not prone to dominating the conversation, or very structured group settings that don't allow cross-talk are more useful for learning to think before you speak than informal social situations with multiple people where people often don't allow any empty space to happen in the conversation. And this is exactly what I meant before. It doesn't always necessarily have to be something bad just because it is not maybe quote-unquote stoic or entirely stoic. It once again really depends on the view that you're taking, and I would argue that Stoicism to a really big degree often is about seeing things in a different light and making one see things in a different light. The whole thing about this is what I can change, alter, and this is what I can't change and alter. This whole thing is about seeing things in certain lights and noticing it. As I said, I don't necessarily think that being a quote-unquote jokester, which is really negatively connotated, I would argue, is that bad. I really don't believe in it. The difference between Stoicism and why it matters so much. Capitalized Stoicism and not capitalized Stoicism, by the way. So capital S versus no capital S. But it's Stoic theory / study, so not gonna go through that. It's linguistics. It's not necessarily what, not what is not interesting or what is interesting. It can be very interesting, but not what I want to go through. What do you think of this Bruce Lee speech? Don't make a plan of fighting. That is a very good way to lose your teeth. If you try to remember, you will lose. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. Put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. Put water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can flow or creep or drip or crash. Be water, my friend. Basically, and I'm really bad at interpreting things. What I'm seeing there is always changing based on the situation that you're facing, which I don't necessarily think that this is bad. When you are facing this situation, being this quote-unquote type of person, to just have a better life, unless I think it is about, I don't know, having multiple personalities. When it comes this far, I do not necessarily would say that it is good, but just, what is it called? And this is something that humans in general are very good and kind of, it's about evolution, adapting, yes, adapting to things and adapting to situations and also adapting to people is good. It really is. But I would actually like to know what people are saying. If they think it is good, if it is bad, if it is, whatever. Hi, please provide a source for this code if required by separate rules, and it helps users find context. Very important. The analogy to water is perfect. Pretty much the same thing as the rock waves crash over analogy by Stoics themselves. Elaborate. Can I see the entire discussion? Yes. To be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over, it stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. I think this quote tells us that every challenge that befalls us, everything we could interpret as hard or discomforting, will come to pass. Another thing to note is that its similarity to the water analogy. A Stoic does not wish events to happen as they wish, but adapts and endures to the events as they do happen. Instead of wishing the waves to not crash upon you, or wishing you were not punched, adapt to face the challenge. Stay indifferent to the actions, to not let your feelings get in the way as you do so, and this too shall pass, as everything does eventually. Yes. Staying calm, I would say. And I think I said that before, but staying calm. Seeing things, noticing things, but staying calm, not overreacting. And if you couldn't face the challenge, and if the waves erode too much, make use of this obstacle for some other purpose. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Or the obstacle becomes the way, as Ryan Holiday put it. What stands in the way becomes the way. Because you then have a goal, actually, when you notice or know that this one person, this one thing, this one object is what needs to be put away, what needs to be whatever the fuck, there's something to do, and you exactly know what to do. For even rocks and waters have their limit. When challenging the problem is beyond you, make use of it. You get punched in the face and know you cannot face them physically, try diplomacy. Having been harmed but not killed, take the